Yeah, we are now live. So thank you very much, Chris. Today's I have a first guest from Great Britain, and it's a big honor for me, really. My first question will be not really traditional. I will explain you how I try to get first guest from England or Great Britain in general. My challenge was just to get people answered on my emails, and in these terms, I will explain you. I sent about 25 or 30 emails, and you're only one person who agreed to participate in this project. Maybe you can say some words general about the culture of communication in Great Britain, or football press officers. It is my problem, or people they don't react much on emails currently. They react more on personal messages on WhatsApp or Facebook, or personal connections with the people. What is the reason and why you answered positively on my email?
Yeah, so to give you an indication, we certainly in the Championship and in England, there's so many teams, there's so many games. We're playing games every 2 or 3 days. Most people doing my job will have to organise travel or accreditation. They'll have to organise a press conference before every match, a press conference after every match. We've got a lot of clubs have. So we have a tradition over in England of city newspapers. So in a city like Liverpool or Newcastle or even places like Stoke and Birmingham, you'll have a newspaper that comes out every day. And the football club
every day. Wow.
Yeah, and the football club is the back half of that. So as a club, you're trying to provide news and content for all those. And every press officer certainly in the Championship and in the UK is dealing with 20, 30 requests for interview every single day for players or for managers or for staff, because you've got your newspapers, you've got your broadcasters. We've got a lot of new media over here, so websites and bloggers and people like that, and you're constantly trying to decide what's what. At Brentford, we I don't know how much of our story you know and our and your viewers know, but we do things differently. We're trying to think a bit differently, trying to not go down the traditional route. And for me, I just saw this as a chance to share some knowledge both ways, really. If I can help you, great, but if I can talk to you or to other like-minded people, it will help me do my job better.
Perfect, and I appreciate it. And my first question, if we go to interview, you said a lot about these newspapers big clubs do, and as I understand, your club is also doing. But what about pre-match magazines? Because I can show you our match magazines. We put a lot in this, and you see this cover every match. We don't have so many games as you, but we also have special ideas, like maybe it could be, let's say, like interpretation of movies or some social projects. What about you? Do you do still these covers for pre-match magazines, or newspaper is enough for the moment?
So you have your sort of your external media, so the newspapers that are reporting on you, and as a club we produce our own match day program. So what you've just shown there, that's what in England we call that the match day program. So for every match you'll produce sort of 100 or so pages, information about
100 pages.
Yeah,
crazy.
Obviously there's pictures and adverts, but information about the game, about the team, about the season, interviews with players, interviews with manager. And at Brentford we have, so this season, because the season was so condensed, so we played so many matches in such a short space of time, one member of my team, his full-time job this season has been to do that. That's pretty, like, he helps us with our matches and does interviews, but he basically Monday to Friday, just one match day program to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and that's his job. normally they're so it's a very traditional thing in the UK having a program. We have I don't know what it's like where you are, but we have what we call program collectors. So people who will go to every match.
We have also.
Will get a program. That a lot of them will bring sort of special plastic, so they'll wrap their program and look after it and keep it safe to make sure that no one can touch it. So obviously we've now played nearly a year with no fans in matches, but we still do our program and we sell it online, and people get it delivered to their houses and still keep it safe. So they've still got every single program for matches home and away, even though they haven't been.
And how many items, how many programs for one game you produce?
Just one. So one. So how many? Do you mean how many do we sell?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So it can fluctuate a little bit. So for our for games where fans aren't at, we're not selling too many, a few hundred, but also we don't print as many. So we sell what we print. For last season, Brentford played a last season at a stadium where we'd been for more than 100 years. So we had very traditional old English stadium, terraces, big floodlights, and that was our last season. We left there after more than 100 years, and we were selling 2,500-3,000 programs every single match. And we did a special edition for the last game, for our last ever game, which was well over 150 pages, A4, really. And I think the initial thought was that we'd sell 10 to 15,000 of those, because people who collect, not just Brentford fans, people who collect programs, like even so, if you might support Manchester United or Manchester City, but you collect programs, that's a special program because it's the last ever one for the game at that ground.
But this, we can say that the club can get some revenues from these programs, or is just, let's say, as a promo, as PR of the club?
So I think we would probably do it as PR, but it does also make money for us. So
that's great.
Yeah. So the way we work is we have a contract with an external supplier. So we produce all the content, and then they print and sell. Other clubs do it differently. Some print in house. Lots of different models, lots of different ways of doing it. That's the way we do it.
And are you personally writing something for this program?
Not anymore. I previously, so going back 5-6 years, I was doing a lot of it. But as so we've got one person who is the editor, but he does a lot of the content as well, and he does most of the work.
Yeah, that's great. We have. I started to do now 40 pages, and I thought that it's a lot. Now hearing that how much you do, it's amazing, really. So also, I wanted to ask you about the current time. You said about current time that you have 14 months, if I'm not mistaken. You're working from home. How often you connect with the team, visiting training ground, or now everything is distant?
So our training ground is open at the moment to me and my team, and I will generally go in once or twice a week, depending on where our games are. So we played at home last night, Tuesday night. So I went in on Monday, and next week we play at home Tuesday and Saturday. So I'll go in Monday, Tuesday before the game, Friday. But if we've got 2 away games, then I won't go in, because a lot of the things I need to do I can do from home. I see them all at matches. So our team would always go to a match. So we're at the game last night. I saw all my team, had a quick chat. But we're in a situation where everyone knows their jobs. So it's basically just, if anything happens, keeping people informed, or alerting them to any changes, or if I just need to check in how they're doing, or to information from the manager or the head coach or directors of football as to what's going on.
Do you visit a dressing room? Is it allowed for you?
Yeah. So my job on a match day, I will when at the final whistle, I go with the manager and his coaching staff into his office where there's about 6 or 7 of us, and they will do a very short 1-2 minute debrief of the match just before they then go and talk to the players. So what
with you also?
Wow. Yeah. So what we do at that's because the way we want to operate is that our external communication is streamlined and is all on point. So if I know what the manager thinks before he speaks to the press, I can then make sure that he's getting that message or remind him of his message. So if the questions sometimes take him off a different way, I can do that. So he'll then talk to the players, and then we'll then come back, just me and him, and normally our head analyst, so the video analysts, that the guys who record the matches. We'll look at the key incidents. So what is he going to be asked about in the press? So he's seen it back, and then I will then. I never tell him what to say, because I don't think that's the right thing to do. But I say, this is what you're going to get asked. What are you going to say to that? Or sometimes he'll ask my opinion. What should I say? And you try and help. What we also try and do is, obviously not at the moment because of COVID, but you would normally have a mix zone. You probably, obviously in the Russian top league, I'm sure you get it. Players will pass through a mix zone. So when I'm in the dressing room, I can then see if there's any players who are injured, so who are going to be delayed coming out because they're getting treatment, or any players who are particularly upset. So I can then tell the rest of my team to make sure that they either don't speak to media, or alternatively, if a player has said something really good in the dressing room, if a player has made a good speech or something's happened to them, then I can tell my team and say, listen, this guy is the right person to speak to the media today. Why don't you encourage them? And so the right players are saying the right things at the right times.
Yeah, I can tell you honestly, sometimes in my team we have problems with the football players because the culture of talking to media is not so developed maybe in Russia than in Europe and in Great Britain. That, for example, we have flash interviews in the middle of the game, and I need to pick up the player who will go to this interview. And usually players, they don't like it. And for these 2 consecutive seasons, we're trying to get some new ideas how to get the players, let's say, confirmed for these interviews. And the only one way for me, it's to ask coach. And then when I say the player that coach said this, not me, they say, okay, I will go.
Yeah.
What about you? Is it the same or not?
Yeah. So every player is different, as you know. Some players really like doing it. Some really don't. I have generally probably three strategies I use to get a player. One is, the manager chose you to do it today, which to be honest, it does happen a lot. So we've got a televised game on Saturday. We're playing away at a TV game, so we will have to make a player available to do the pre-match flash interview, and we will talk to the manager, the head coach, about that. We will decide like who's playing well, who's speaking well, who's the right person. So most of the time it's the truth. The manager has chosen, or we've worked with the manager. The other thing I say is it's good for their development. So a lot of our players are a lot of them have English as a second language. So we've got a lot of Danish players, and we've got Finnish players and Spanish players. So I say that if you want to play in the Premier League and you want to play English, play international football, and you want to be the best, then this is what these guys do. They speak, they go and ask a couple of questions. Every time you do it, you'll get slightly better at it. So it's just sort of, we'll help you. We'll be with you. It's not tricky. Just keep going. I relax them. I tell them what sort of thing they're going to say. I suggest things that, okay, so this is what they're going to ask you, and this is sort of what we're thinking. And the other thing I do is I just sort of say, it's your turn. Everyone else has done it. You're part of a team. If the person sitting next to you has done 4 and you haven't done any, you probably need to do 1 so that he doesn't have to do the next one. Because and this is part of it, because obviously we're at Brentford, we're 4th in the Championship at the moment, so we want to be a Premier League club, and in the Premier League it's even more media work, midweek media work, even more pre and post match. And I say, you will want to be Premier League players. this is what being a Premier League player is. We'll help you. We'll get you better, and you work with us.
You know, we have also one principle that such things like asking for interviews, it's better not to ask publicly, like inside of dressing room where a lot of other players can hear that. And that's why we're trying to get a player alone and ask him personally, because then let's say the ability that he will confirm without anything saying is much more.
Yeah.
Do you think about that this community inside of dressing room is really maybe not the right place to talk with the players about some media necessities you have?
So for me, I look at that as it depends on the stature of the player. So if we've got like the captain or one of the leadership group of players, if we go in and ask them to do it and they say yes, that because we know that one of the senior players, they will always say yes to doing it because they know that that's their job. And that actually helps the other players because they see that, okay, so this is part of our job as players. But the younger players or the players who are less secure, we will do it to one side, or maybe even just text them, WhatsApp, and say, oh, listen, can you do this? Because then it's just one-on-one. We can explain, and especially if you're saying in writing exactly what they need to do, then there's no confusion, and you can always make it a bit less scary by writing it down sometimes. And we also we've got a player welfare team that will travel with
excuse me, what do you mean by writing down? You mean in WhatsApp?
WhatsApp or text. So if you write it down, they can see exactly what you're asking them to do. And sometimes we use the player welfare team as well. So we've got a player welfare team, not coaching staff, who like look after travel and look after the players like when they're away from the stadium. So sometimes we'll say, can you give us a bit of a help with this one? Can you ask the player for us?
Yeah, it's a good point also. What can you say now about I don't want to talk much about this idea of Super League, but it was a lot of hype about this topic. And maybe did you react somehow personally or as a club when people started talking that Super League is going and it crashes the football in Europe?
Yeah, so as a club, we didn't have an opinion. It all happened so quickly. It sort of almost came and went before we had a chance to do it. We did a press conference on Monday actually before our game last night, so we knew that there would be questions, and as a club, we just sort of our line at that point was we haven't thought about it. Like when the head coach is speaking, the head coach isn't the owner, he isn't the chairman, he isn't the director of football, so he can always say that's not my place to answer. He gave his opinion, which we allow him to do. We're always happy for him to give a personal opinion on matters because he's an intelligent man and a good coach and charismatic, and people like him, so he can express that. The conversations I had with my senior bosses on Monday morning, they were in almost no doubt that it wouldn't happen. So, I mean, obviously, it was Sunday here. I wasn't at work on Sunday, but you went through Sunday where it all came out. Monday morning, phoned a couple of my senior bosses, just to sort of establish and say ahead of that press conference, what should we say? The club didn't have an opinion on that point because it was just a proposal, and they were of the thought that things would all change so quickly it would probably not come to pass. My personal opinion is that anything that's non-competitive, anything that you can't, like the American style, what we in England call a closed shop, so you can't join it, you can't get better and get up there. That's bad for football. You need to be able to. Every club needs to be able to start at the bottom, and if they get better and better and better and better over a series of years, they have to be able to get to the very top. Any club that's formed now could, in 50 years' time, win the Champions League. It's unlikely, but it could happen. And anything that stops that happening is bad, and it will. I think it would if football becomes uncompetitive, that could hurt. That could hurt the game.
Yeah, it's a good point. You said a little bit about external communications, and my next question is how it's working in your club. For example, something big is happening, which is concerned with the club, with some players. What your actions, what your steps you do before publish an official release on your website? You need to call a coach or a general director, or you have a meeting. Like how it works in your club?
Yeah, so if it's football related, I would have a 4 people who I would make contact with to outline the issue or potential issue and what we might do about it, which is the club's chief executive, who is my boss. We've got 2 directors of football and the head coach. So they would be the 4 people who I would talk to about, okay, this is going to happen. What do we say? If it's not football related, then I wouldn't include the head coach. But we also have, so for instance, we've got a commercial director, a finance director. We've got people who deal with diversity and inclusion. So anything to do with like racism. So I would include them as well. And what my general position is that if something happens, I don't react immediately. I give myself 10, 15 minutes to think about what could happen, because if I just present them a problem, that's not helping. I need to have at least thought about, okay, so this is what I think we should do. I'm always of the opinion that I could be wrong. So I never sort of say this is what we're going to do, but I say, but my position would be, this is what I think would be the best thing to do from here. What do you think? And then sometimes they agree with me, sometimes they disagree, and then we decide what we're going to do next.
And how it looks, it's like a video conference of all these 4 people and you, or something different?
Normally email, just do it on email, because again, we can, if it's all written down step by step by step, then you can't get it wrong. But before COVID, we would often be in a situation where the head coach, the directors of football, and myself would all be at the training ground. So I would then sometimes just go and grab them and say, "This has happened. What do we do?" We'll have a conversation about it, and then I'll update the chief executive by phone or by email and say, "This is what's happening. This is what we're minded to do." And then if he has an opinion, I'll then go and share that back in. The other really important person that we will often lean on a little bit is our club secretary. So I presume it's the same there, but in England, the secretary is sort of she knows all the rules. So all the rules and regulations about everything basically. So if there's anything to do with rules or discipline, then we always make sure we include her as well. Just so if we're not 100% sure we've got the rules right, then she'll tell us.
Great. Please tell some words about your normal match day. How does it look, and what's the difference between match days in your local city and away games?
Yeah. So for a home game, my work will start 3 or 4 days in advance. So we get, excuse me. I deal with the incoming requests for accreditation to the game. So
actually, excuse me, how many people usually asking for accreditations in England? It's just curious.
Yeah. So normally 20 to 30 people, radio and written broadcasters, and about 15 photographers we normally get. That's sort of that's an average game.
Not bad.
So deal with all the accreditation coming in. Applications have to be in 2 days in advance. So if we're playing on a Tuesday, it has to close on a Sunday. If we're playing on a Saturday, Thursday.
I understand.
So we would then the day before a game finish off on the accreditation system. So we're very lucky in England. We've got a national accreditation system. So every club and every game can access the system and can send automated responses saying yes or no. So we don't have to email everyone or fax everyone.
Wow.
They put it on a system and we just tick yes or tick no. So we're at home next Saturday. So next Friday morning, I will tick yes and no to everybody. I'll send them out all the information.
Great, that's great.
On the Friday afternoon, I will then go into the stadium. So I'll make sure that the press box is set up and all clean. I'd make sure that all the interview areas are where the interview backdrops and everything is where it should be. I'll sort of check the pitch and check the dressing rooms and all those sort of things, and just make sure everything is as it needs to be. And then on a home match day, I'd arrive 3 to 3.5 hours before. So
do you have pre-match gatherings like all the officials, your team, away team? You discuss all the details when one team arrives. No,
not really. So
really?
That's normally done. So normally the secretary will just send the other club and say this is when you can arrive and this is where you need to go. So I don't get involved in that. When we have fans in, so obviously we're behind closed doors at the moment, no fans. When we had fans in, we had meetings normally a couple of days in advance where we know how many fans had bought tickets. How many away fans, any information from the police or anything like that. But we haven't had to do one of those for 18 months, so I don't really know. So then I'd arrive 3.5 hours or so before the game. The players have their pre-match meal and meeting in the stadium as well. So I'd see the head coach or some of the coaching staff and just make sure I know what the team is, so that we can get the team sheets ready and everything like that. Again,
you mean pre-match training, right? Or you're talking about match day?
Yeah, match day. So they have their pre-match meal and their the last video they watch before they go out. Then normally, so I'm on the security radio system around the ground. So all the senior people who are responsible for making sure the ground is safe and secure, I'm on the same radio system as them, so that if there's any problems with any media, they can alert me via radio. About 2 hours before, the opposition media team will arrive. So I'll show them where everything is, make sure they know what's what, where the press conferences are, where the radio interviews are, where the TV interviews are. So show them all around. Tell them anything they might need to know, if we've got any rules or regulations or any places that people can't go. And then, team sheets an hour before the game, and then the match. For away games, it's far simpler. So we use that accreditation portal system. So I tell my counterpart, so the person doing my job at the club we're going to, who's coming and like what seats we need and what access we need. And so for instance, we will do for every game, we take commentators with us. So we do a radio commentary. So we take commentators to every game. We take video staff to every game. So they'll film some of the match, and they'll film like post-match interviews and things like that. So I tell them who's coming, and then I'll arrive 2.25 hours before the game. I arrive slightly earlier if the game's on TV. So not every game in the Championship is on TV. So if there's TV, I'll arrive a little earlier, so to make sure I can then see the reporter and the floor manager and the commentators and everyone who's running the TV broadcast. Make sure I know who they are and if they've got any questions. And then the team normally arrives 90 minutes or so before the game. I'll see the head coach, make sure again I know what the team is. We do the pre-match interviews at that point if we need to do any. So if it's a TV game, player and the manager will do a pre-match interview. And then that's it. Then I watch the match and then go into the dressing room.
And where do you watch the game?
Mostly from the press box. So
okay.
I still so for our club website, I still write all the match reports. because I've been writing the match reports for the club website for about 15 years now. So I did it when I was as a volunteer, and then I did it when I started working full time. So that's the bit I don't really want to give that up if I can. I really enjoy that. I think you get you get a better picture of the match if you're watching it closely to try and report on it. So that if the manager asks anything, if he recalls an incident, I know about it because I've noted it down and then reported it back. So I can then, if there's anything he needs to know, I can talk to him.
And it's always okay. You don't have problems. For example, you can write something that the head coach don't like, or one of the players don't like.
We're writing it for the club, so you wouldn't openly criticize. You wouldn't be very critical of a player.
Yeah, of course.
But if a player has made a mistake, if a goalkeeper's gone to catch a ball and drops it, you're just reporting what's happened. If you're saying that went through his legs, or he's missed from 2 yards, then that's what's happened. Yeah, and it's you'll often try and give an excuse if you can. So if the sun was in his eyes, or it took a deflection, and you might try and make it a bit better. But I think my personal opinion is that footballers make dozens of mistakes every single match. Most of them don't mean anything, but they'll miss control, or they'll head it in the wrong direction, or they'll be trying to pass the player there and it'll go slightly wrong. Football is all about how you recover from your mistakes, really, and how few you make. So don't destroy a player, don't write bad things about him, but if a mistake has played a part in the game, then that's just what it is.
But some players, especially in Russia, they're quite sensitive about this topic.
Yeah, I haven't come across a player that's very sensitive about it. Perhaps I'm not that critical of them. I don't know.
Okay, and after the game, what do? You watch the game, then final whistle?
Yeah, so final whistle, I will get, again, if we're on TV and we need to do a flash interview, then I will be in touch with the TV to see who they want. And most of the time now, I just walk into the middle of the pitch and just go and get them. Because I think that's the easiest thing. If the player is starting to walk off and you're taking them towards where the TV needs to be, then it's not gonna. Then that's the easiest thing. It's
a good point, actually.
If you wait for them to go in, or they start talking to someone else, then you might miss them. Whereas if I see them, and so while they're shaking hands with all the other players, when you've done this, we're doing that, then they know. So that's normally fine. But if there's no flash interview or no TV, I'll go in with the players into the manager, like I discussed. We'll do that mini debrief, and then I'll talk to the manager about doing his post-match press.
Yeah. And now your press conferences is also distant with video conference, right?
So some are, some aren't. So all pre-match press conferences are done on Zoom like this. So we'll have the manager in the training ground and the journalists at their houses doing back. At matches, if the room is big enough, or if you can do it outside, then we generally do that. So it's all about making sure you're safe and you've kept a safe distance. So we've got a big press conference room. So our press conference room would normally hold 70 people. So if we've got the head coach and 10 people in there, that's perfectly safe. So that's what we do.
So sometimes you have real press conferences.
Yeah. And we prefer that because our current head coach, he talks a lot with his hands. So he does a lot of hand gestures and things like that. And he likes to look people in the eye when he's talking to them. So we feel that he comes across much better talking to people face to face than he does on video. So he's getting better on video, and he's good on video, but he's even better in person. So we try where we can to do it in person.
So as I understand, you are working your 11th year as a press officer. During these years, can you remember any stories when you had really scandals or gossip, I don't know, something something special, let's say, in your press conferences, or usually it's more or less okay?
Yeah, I can't remember anything really scandalous. So probably the most stressful time that we ever had was in 2000 and what would it have been, 2006. So no, is that right? No, 2000. No, that wouldn't have been right. 2012. God, I can't remember what year. I can't remember what year it was.
It doesn't matter.
A little while ago. So we as I said to you earlier in the call, we moved stadiums last year. So on a in order to get permission to build the new stadium, we had to have a big public meeting. So on a Thursday night, we had a big public meeting with the council and lots of people from around the town that we're from, and there had to be a decision as to whether they were going to allow us to build a new stadium on a piece of land. It's quite our new stadium is very if you look at some pictures if you can, it's very it's unique. It's hemmed in between railway lines. It's a really crazy design. Quite fun, but definitely a bit different. So we've done a lot of work over 6 months, sort of some media and placing letters and getting fans to write letters and getting all the communication out. And then on a Thursday night, we had a meeting where it was going to be decided. And this what we call over here is planning. It's called a planning committee. And in England, planning committee is like a legal body. So it's a bit like rules of a court. So there are certain things you can do and certain things you can't do, and you can't, if you're involved in the planning application or trying to build, there are certain, as I say, you can't talk publicly like on social media or anything like that. You have to be very, very careful. That same day, our manager left. So at exactly the same time that we were going through this legal proceeding to do a planning commission, planning permission for a new stadium, our manager was poached by another club. So at the point where we were in this meeting and trying to do all the communication and get the press releases out, our manager was in contract to another club, we had to try and negotiate with this other club that we couldn't make any statement about it, because if we'd have made a statement about the manager leaving, that could have been seen as being in breach of the law of the planning committee that we were also doing at the same time. So I mean, as you know, one of the biggest things you ever deal with is a change of manager. So you're dealing with a change of manager and a court hearing at the same time. Not a scandal, but definitely a challenging couple of days. I don't think I slept that night, actually.
But it happened, yes.
It happened, yeah. So we got the planning permission, and the manager left, yeah.
But you said you tried to ask the other club to make the statement later. They didn't want. They didn't want.
They did. They understood, but we had to trying to explain to them why we couldn't make the statement at that time. Was
this was your challenge.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So I also read from your small biography what you shared with me by email about your education, and you call it just a moment, NCTJ, journalism qualification. To be honest, I don't know anything about that. I heard for the first time. What do you briefly explain? What does it mean? What is that?
So in the UK, there's all journalists have to go through training before they're allowed to write for newspapers, because we've got very strict laws of libel here. So do you understand what I mean by libel? So when you say something about someone,
once again,
it's called libel, Libel.
Okay.
It's when you talk or write something about someone else. It's
okay.
You can get
about personalities, or companies. Okay.
Yeah, people or companies or whatever, anything they've done. There are quite
I think I understand.
There are strict laws about what you can and can't say, and they're also very we got very strict laws about reporting in court. So what when you go to a court hearing, what you can say about it. So all most journalists before they start working for newspapers would do this qualification. They would. I did mine in about 6 to 9 months. They teach you how to write a news story.
Wow, 6-9 months.
Yeah. How to write a news story, all the laws about reporting, and they also teach you shorthand. So I can write shorthand. Do you use shorthand over?
What does it mean?
So it's when so if someone's talking and you're taking notes or you're writing down. There's special language you can use to make it.
No, I don't know. I heard about that. But...
Yeah. So I've got my shorthand is about 120 words a minute. So if someone talks for 120 words a minute, I can write that down. Because again, that all comes back to English laws around court reporting. So in a court, like a murder trial or something like that, you're not allowed to take in recording devices. You're not allowed to record what's being said. You can only write it down. So any journalist I trained as a news journalist firstly, and anyone who wants to be a news journalist and goes into court has to be able to write shorthand. So that was all part of the training.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I think all your journalists should be very skillful for any work.
And they are. So the British newspapers, that the standard of journalism is really quite high. Unfortunately, now you're in a situation where social media and blogs, a lot of people who can just write anything. And I personally have the opinion that if someone's working for a newspaper, especially a national newspaper, you can trust that they understand how that they've all trained and the standard is quite high. You might not like what they write, but it's going to be their opinion. It's going to be fair.
And maybe in these terms, I want to ask you: is it possible to get any internship or any courses of English newspapers? Maybe I don't mean this especially NCTG, but maybe something different.
So most newspapers will do work experience. So you can go in and do a week or two's work experience at a newspaper. I did 2 weeks work experience on a national newspaper while I was training. So a lot will do, yeah. And I think, and certainly like local newspapers, small newspapers, town newspapers. They will have people, because it helps them because they can get people to write things, and then helps the journalists get some skills as well.
And what about the clubs? For example, if I as press officer send an official request to have an internship at your club, is it possible? I understand now it's difficult, but after.
So we generally haven't done it because at Brentford we have, in all honesty, it's to do with space. So our office only fits 4 people, 4 or 5 people, and we have 4 or 5 full-time staff. So I could get you in or get an intern in, but they've got nowhere to sit. So it means they can't bring a laptop. They can't
stay.
They can't do any work. So what we a lot since over the last couple of years, a lot of new programs have been set up in the UK to try and help people into work. And once we're out of COVID, we're going to take part in some of those. So to get people in to do 4 months with us, 6 months with us, we'll buy an extra desk. We'll buy them a desk and a chair, and then we can get me. I'm not a fan of 1 week work experience. I think by the time you've told someone what they need to do, their time's up. But if someone is willing to do I think it should be paid, but like a paid internship learn on the job for 4 to 6 months, then I think there's a benefit in that, and I think we will do that as we move on.
But the thing is it possible for foreigners to come? Because as I see, your journalists are so qualified that if I'm not native speaker, no chance.
So I think your English would probably be good enough. I think without going too far into it, I think Britain leaving the European Union is a bit of a will be a challenge there. I don't know I don't know what that will mean in terms of laws and who can come in. But I'd be happy to have someone someone from abroad. So I think it gives you a different perspective. As a club as well. As a club as well, we have lots of players from different countries. So we've got lots of Scandinavian players. We've got players from France and from Spain and Australia. We've got an Australian player. Obviously, he speaks English, but we've got players from all different people, different places. So if I bring in someone who's a native speaker, then I think that will help everybody. And so what we will often do is when I look to recruit for my team, I look for people who can speak second languages. So I've got one person in my team who speaks French, another one who speaks Spanish, and that means that they can interact better with the players, and it makes life a lot easier.
I understand. Okay, some more questions. I read also in your email about your team when you just came to the club. It was 2.5 person working in the press department, and then it was huge, up to 9 or 10 people. And then you said that you, let's say, were separated into 2 different departments, and now 3 people working with the media, and other guys, they're working like more for marketing. Maybe you can explain briefly also how this transition was happening and what was the difference like inside of your team, and especially about social media. I'm also curious how many people doing your social media.
Yeah, so I started full time in 2010. So at that point, there were websites, but social media was pretty new then. There wasn't a lot of social media. So when I first sort of started making the team a bit bigger, we got in one person to take control of the social media, and then over the years we added people to take over and to run video, because again, back in 2010, video content wasn't really such a big thing. You had TV, of course, but you didn't have, like, football clubs weren't doing a lot of video, but we got someone in to do that, and we grew and grew, and we had a communications department that looked after media inquiries and all our external content, so social media, website, video, and that, as I say, just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we added people to do graphics. So what we look for in our social media, we look for like consistency in terms of graphics. We want someone to look at something and think that it looks like Brentford. So
you mean like infographics? You mean graphics like design?
Yeah. So design. Yeah. So that we have our own special style, so people can look at something and think it's come from us. But what happened is it almost got too big, really. There was too much going on, and trying to marry up content and external media. So
even in 2 years in my club, I understand it's so huge, and in 11 years, I can imagine.
So what we did at the last season, we just we took a decision that the 4 of us who were working at the training ground would focus mostly on external media, so dealing with the incoming media inquiries and dealing with what the players and the manager said publicly. There are a couple of other things that we still do as well. So the social media is still managed by my team. So it's probably the best way to describe it is that my team now manages what we would call the external message. So what goes out from the club falls under our remit, but the creation of it falls to other people. So We've got we've now got a 4-person video team. So a sort of a head of video and 3 video content creators. And I work very closely with them. So I will tell them like what we're trying to say, and what like the club message is, but they have free reign to be entertaining, so that they'll create content and they'll do interviews, and what I'll do is I'll work with them on sort of some topics that might be good or bad, with each individual with individual players, but they can be creative, they come up with ideas. And we've got a show. We produce our own YouTube show that goes out once or twice a week, where we've got a presenter and former players and current players, and we use that to help communicate with our fans. Now they can't come to games.
Yeah, it's huge. What about design? Let's say people working with your design, they're inside of your team, or it's a different department?
So it's different department. We've got two full-time designers, and they work they work similar to the video team. So I'll be in touch with them and tell them what we need, but they again have sort of they control the look, that however everything looks, that's down to them.
And how many people from all that let's say media departments they really in connect with the main football team? They can attend the training ground and the games. Probably
only 4 or 5. Yeah. So we try to limit. It's mostly because of COVID, and English training grounds are quite closed down. You're not supposed to get too many people in. So this season we limited it down to the four people in the communications team, and then a couple of the video guys. They also come down as well. So they will, if the weather's good and they can do some filming outside, then they'll film some of their content outside at the training ground.
Also, one question about this growth of your media team. How was it going? It was like your request to your CEO, general director, that you need more people to work. There is a social media and more information you need to work with, or it was always in internal communication. You exchange your opinions, and then somebody decides that, okay, we need more people in this department.
No, it was generally so mostly it was at my request. It was looking at the way something had developed, and to see what we need. So as I said, we got someone in to do social media, and then there was a growth of video, so we got someone in to do video, and then video got even bigger, so we got someone else to do. So we got extra people to do video, and then we looked at social media in terms of making sure that everything looked right. So then we got, I'd say, people in to do graphics and design. A lot of the time we had people doing the job, but they were sort of outsourced, so contractors. They're working for, so we would pay them to do one job, so pay them per job rather than being full time. And what would sometimes happen is that you'd ask someone to do a job, but because they were working for lots of other people, it would sometimes be a bit slow. So it was when we started to realize we need to be quicker. We need to get things done. That's when we get people in full time.
And did you need a lot of time to convince your boss that you need more people? And maybe you made some presentations to do this.
I always presented again what we call a business case. So I would say this is what the person would do, and this is how we would benefit, and then leave them to make the decision.
Yeah, that's a good point. So just a few questions, and then I have a list of quiz, which is I think will be really interesting with you. Today we have a kind of problem. Maybe even some Russian clubs, they don't have verified accounts. For Russian people, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time to get this. The
blue tick.
Yes, exactly. And I see that European clubs, coaches, and players, they get it much faster. Do you have a specific, I don't know, way or connection how you can get a verified account for your football player on Instagram or Facebook?
Yeah,
Do you have direct contacts for that?
Yes. So the leagues, so the EFL and the EPL, they have links with the social media companies. So there's basically both leagues provide Twitter, Instagram with lists of players, and the clubs liaise with the players, say what is your official account, and they then get verified.
And the players also, you just let's say you have a player, he signed a contract with you, then you send the information to the league, and this player got a verified account just in a few days.
So there are I think there's normally rules about the number of like competitive. So after they played a certain number of competitive games or done a certain thing, it's not just a player signs a contract, but say if a player plays a first team game or 2 or 3 first team games, that then qualifies them to get the team.
And the league does all the other matches.
The league has the relationship with the social media companies, and then each individual. So our the guy in my team who manages social media, he has links directly in with the social media companies for good and bad. So with verified accounts, or if we get a lot of abuse as well. So if we need to report accounts who've been saying things directly, sending things to our players, then we have that as well.
Okay, I think we go to the quiz. We're already talking about 1 hour. It's really great. And before we start with quiz, you can have some time to think about. Maybe you can recommend somebody to be my next guest after you from England, because for me it's really difficult to get the people from this country to participate. I know that some of my friends, colleagues, they asked Chelsea and big English clubs, but of course they say, "Come on, who is this guy?" we don't have time for this. But now you can think, and I will find my questions.
Well, what I'll do is when I see my colleagues at other clubs, I'll let them know that I did it.
Yeah, because as I told you, with emails it doesn't work much.
Yeah.
Most of my contacts I got by WhatsApp, and when I'm writing by WhatsApp, I don't know, maybe it's impolite in Europe, but people asking and answering much faster, and usually they say yes, but not always. So let's start our quiz. I ask you to answer shortly, as it's possible for you. How to learn to be a press officer? What can you recommend as the best ways to be a good journalist?
So I trained as a journalist. So I went, as we said earlier, I went on that course, trained to be a journalist. And I think being a press officer is a little bit of thinking like a journalist. So what is the news story? What do people want to know? How can you help them? So we generally think of ourselves as trying to help the media rather than block the media. But you've always got to tread that fine line between the most important thing is the club and the player. So for me, being a good press officer is helping the press as much as you can while also protecting the club and the player.
3 main qualities of a good press officer.
Honesty, availability. You got to be able to answer your phone or your messages. Stamina. It's long, it's tiring.
Yeah. Actually, how many calls do you have for messages per one day?
Probably 200 plus emails a day. Some of which you can just delete straight away, but and that's internal and external. I probably get 10 to 15 WhatsApps a week, WhatsApp or messages a week. So like today, because today I haven't got much today because we did a game yesterday, but some days I'll get 4, 5, 6 different people different question. It depends on whether there's a story or not.
So not that much.
Yes, some days none, but other days 10, 15.
Yeah, because I interviewed the press officer of Serie A, and he said about 200 messages every day. And
never that many. Never that many.
That's good. The biggest achievement of your club at the moment?
Building a new stadium. It's
already built? Or?
Yeah, we've moved in there now. Yeah, so building a new stadium in London was a challenge.
And capacity is how big?
17,500.
Wow, should be cozy stadium.
Yeah.
The day when you were happy at work, and if it's many days, how many?
I think most days I'm happy. I try not to get too affected by results, but I've had one promotion since I've been working full time, and one promotion just before I started full time, and that feels like whenever you achieve something like that over a full season, that feels like everyone has achieved it, not just the players, but the whole club. Everyone's played their bit in that promotion.
Can a press officer be a friend of a football player? I mean, outside of your work.
I think outside you can, but there's always a chance you might have to tell a player something they don't want to hear. So I've got good relationships with most players, and some really good relationships with a few, but I try not to get too close, because players will probably leave or will do something. I will ask them to do something they don't want to do, or they will do something that I don't want them to do. So it's better to have a good professional relationship rather than be friends.
Yeah, I wanted to say that. How many hours sleeps a press officer?
Last night after a game, I slept for 4 hours.
Oh. Because of emotions? Or?
Yeah. So our game finished last night at 8 p.m. I was still struggling to sleep at 1:30 a.m. So 5.5 hours later. Last year we lost the playoff final last year. So the Championship playoff final to get promoted to the Premier League.
Oh.
I think I fell asleep at 4 a.m.
But usually it's okay. You mentioned some special.
Non-match days is fine. So it's match days. They're very. You have to sort of the adrenaline around a match.
Yeah.
You have to be really alert, and then trying to switch off after that is. Saturdays are okay. Saturdays normally by the time it gets to 10, 11 o'clock, it's fine. Midweek games, no good.
But then when you can't sleep, what do you do?
I don't go to bed until I need to sleep. I work on the basis that I try and do some of tomorrow's work before I go to bed, so that then if I then sleep in, then I don't want to have to get up. If I'm falling asleep at 2, I don't want to have to try and get up at 7 to work. So I will, if I know I'm wide awake, I'll try and do some of tomorrow's work so that I can sleep the following day.
How many football games do you watch per week?
Oh, how many? Probably 10 to 12. So I watch normally two Brentford games, and then often our B team, so the under So the second team, I'll watch their game, and then I'll probably watch one game on TV every day normally.
It's only English Premier League, European competitions.
I watch Champions League and the Europa League. Not normally foreign leagues. So I wouldn't watch the Italian league or the Spanish league or anything like that. But European international, I watch.
Who is the biggest rival of Brentford in London?
Fulham.
It's a local derby.
Yeah.
Okay. The stadium with the best football atmosphere, a part of your stadium, of course.
Best football atmosphere. The best atmosphere I've been to at a game was at Leeds.
Actually, the guy from Leeds promised me to be my guest, but he's not answering my email.
Well, I know him. I'll drop him a message for you.
Okay, thank you. And the most stress situation you had at work during these years?
Yeah, most stressful situation. So the one I mentioned earlier about the planning permission, because I think if Brentford hadn't been able to build a new stadium, that would have really stopped the development of the club. I think we needed a new stadium to grow, and that was very important. Playoff final is stressful. When or any end of season match, I think. So any match where your entire season or what happens next depends on the result, that's stressful. I think I look at it, there's probably two reasons. Is that most of the guys on the pitch and the coaches, you know them, you want them to succeed. You want that they've worked so hard, and you want them to try and get what they deserve. But also for if an individual working within football, it does make a big difference to say that you're working for a Premier League club or something like that. For me personally, if Brentford were in the Premier League, that would change my entire career. So it's and you've got no control over what's happening. You're just watching it and hoping, and that's stressful.
To be honest, I don't believe that there are many problems in English football, but still the main problem of English football, in your opinion?
I think the biggest problem at the moment is racism. The social media companies are not doing enough to prevent people racially abusing everybody, but particularly football. And to be honest, I say racism, but I think just general abuse. Social media platforms, they're mostly good things, good ways to interact and to communicate, but we've all got it on our phones, and it's not right that someone can just say horrible things to you without anyone stopping them. If you wouldn't say it to someone sat next to them in a street, you shouldn't be allowed to say it on social media.
Press officer always needs what?
Probably now their phone. The other thing that I really need is good people to work with. I've got 3 now, but I've worked with 15, 20 people over the years, and if you've got people that you trust and rely on, then it makes things a bit easier, because you'll never be able to do it all on your own. You've got to give some responsibility and to ask people to help with other things. If you've got good people and you trust them, that goes a long way.
That's true. And the last one, what is the Brentford, the football club, is for you?
It's for me, it's a family thing. So I grew up 2 miles away. My dad took me when I was 6. His dad took him. My mum's dad took me. I go with my brother. I go with my wife. I go with my kids. My wife's a Brentford fan. I met her at going to matches. So before I started working for the club, I was a fan. I went home and away. I don't think I would ever work for another football club. It's not to say I definitely wouldn't, but I think I've such a strong emotional connection that wanting someone else to win would be a bit difficult.
Great. Thank you very much. It was Chris Wickham, the press officer of FC Brentford. And as I said you before, maybe during this some minutes you got some potential candidates to be my next guest.
Yeah, I'll I know all the people who do my job in the Championship, so I'll drop them all a message.
Wow, that's good. I hope we have more guests from England because maybe you mentioned that I was asking you more about the football in England than about your club, because the things you say, it's really amazing for me, because unfortunately we don't have many services, many things that you have in Great Britain here in Russia, and I hope our communication could help our football also to develop.
No problem at all.
Yeah, thank you very much, and wish you finally to promote in Premier League, and then I will support your club next year.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, have a nice day. Bye.
And you, thank you. Bye bye. Cheers. I'll log off now, Alex. Take care, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks.